congratulations on the movie.
Thank you very much.
Great to talk to you.
Thank you.
I wanted to begin by asking you about the writing process. And when you're working on something like this, like, did you have ideas for the sequel when you were making the first film, or did you sort of have to take a break after the success of the first film and say, now that I have this opportunity to make a sequel, what do I want to do?
You nailed it. You answered my question for me.
Yeah.
No, what it was is the first one was the most amazingly personal experience for me. That was truly, as crazy as it looks from the posters, it was a love letter to my kids. And so I didn't think I could ever match anything as personal as that. So actually when the studio asked me to do a sequel, I said no. I said go find another writer, director, enjoy it. And the one thing that I had in my head was this idea that Millie would be the lead of the second movie. And when I thought about that for a long time and they were off kind of starting whatever process they were starting, it started to unlock for me that the second one I could do not as a sequel, but organically as a continuation of the first one, both story-wise but also metaphor-wise. This idea of the first one being about, if you're a parent, you make this promise to your kids that if you stay close to me, I can protect you forever. All parents know that that's a false promise and that one day that promise will be broken. And I think when that promise is broken, I think that's what adolescence is. I think that's what growing up is. And so all of a sudden I thought, oh my God, I can actually make this movie have all the same themes, all the same strength, and now to benefit it, I think it's scarier because you know these characters much better. I think it's much more intense because you know the rules of sound, and so you're paying attention to it more. It's not just sort of happening to you. Right. And then it turned into as personal an experience as the first one, which is the only way I was going to do it.
Well, you mentioned it, but I really like the fact that the first film is about the adults saving the children.
Yes.
And the second film is really about the children saving the adults.
Perfect.
Can you
Can I steal that tagline? Thank you very much.
That goes on the poster.
Yeah, exactly.
But how does that dynamic really change the plot and the characters in the story?
Well, I mean, for me, it didn't change things that much in my process because the kids are so good. Right. I mean, everybody will tell you not to work with kids because they add hours, they don't really know their lines, it takes a long time to get them to a certain place. Not at all for me. I had the exact opposite experience. Not only are these kids the most unbelievable actors, they're the most unbelievable people. I mean, in my opinion, they shouldn't be able to grasp or contemplate issues and nuances that we're dealing with in the movie, let alone articulate them in a performance. So here these kids are that are kind of superhuman in their talent, and Millie in particular, as far as hanging an entire movie on her shoulders, I mean, I had no nerves about it at all. In fact, I had to Skype her before she read the script because I knew that if she saw that she was the lead of the movie, she'd get really nervous. And I just told her, I said, I want you to know I didn't come up with this idea until I realized the first one, you did the job already. You are a good enough actress. You're a good enough, a powerful enough actress. You are a great enough character. I actually had the confidence to write this sequel because of you, not to scare you. And so I think she wrapped her head around it and crushed it.
Yeah, she's great in it. She's amazing. The flashback sequence, was it nice as a director shooting a scene where you don't have people running and screaming in terror? Did it feel like shooting a different movie for that sequence?
Yeah, it definitely did. It felt like a different movie. It was certainly the first thing I wrote was the opening of the movie. And I knew that I wanted to introduce where the creatures came from or the events that led up to the situation that we explored in the first one. But I also knew that I didn't want to give too much information because I think if you give too much information for me, then you're ahead of the characters. Then you know more than the characters, and it will skew your perspective of the movie, and you don't get to live through the movie with the characters. And so not only did I write the first part of the movie first, but I also said, I want to shoot as much as I can in one take. And in doing that, when you don't cut, I personally feel that it allows you to really sit in the car with Emily. You're actually walking on the street with me. You actually feel the tension and the elongated pauses where you're like, something bad's going to happen. And it was incredible that we pulled it off. But a lot of people, I think, when they win awards, say this is for the crew. And I don't doubt that all those crews are deserving. But I personally have never worked with a crew like this because those scenes are so impossible to shoot because of the entire 300 group crew. Everyone has to be perfect. Everyone has to nail their job exactly on time. Otherwise, it breaks down and the take doesn't work and it might not even end up in the movie. And so one of the best experiences of my career was watching 100 people run out from those buildings after Emily's car chase scene or car, nightmare or whatever. And they all ran out and everybody was high-fiving and hugging because everybody knew that was as good as it gets as far as just pulling it off. It was great.
Yeah. the scares in the film are great.
Thank you.
And I mean, I was jumping out of my seat. I was
Thank
kind of
you.
screaming and squirming a couple times. Are those scripted? Do you find them on set in production, or is it like a post-production thing that you're kind of finding some of those moments?
It's a little bit of everything. I mean, certainly the majority of it was written into the script because you do need to. It's almost like a metronome. You do need to keep time with the scares, and I find scares bizarrely a lot like a joke. I think you have to set it up perfectly in order to get the response that you want. So I think you got to build enough tension, not too much tension. You have to wait a long enough time, but not too much time. And so for me, I wrote it into the script, but it's funny because I actually found myself being an audience member before I was a director or a writer on this one, because I know that I'm weary of sequels. I'm always like, this just feels like a cash grab of the studio, or it's not going to be as good. And I knew I wouldn't take this on unless I could deliver to the audience really a thank you note for the first one. And I know that sounds corny, but genuinely, this movie I wanted to be as good, if not better than the first, so that all those people who showed us all that kindness and all that respect on the first movie had a movie that they could go to and be like, oh, it's exactly what I wanted, you know? And in order to do that, instead of getting scared about how do I make it scarier, how do I make it bigger, all those things, I just decided to fly right in the face of it and just write the story. And so I started with Millie, I started writing the story, and weirdly the movie took on its own organic life because you care about these people, because once she goes off on her own, your brain says, oh God, now there's a little girl without her mom, and like, oh my, you know, you just start getting more and more tense. And so the simplicity of it, I think, was the thing that made it better.
When you're working with actors like Cillian Murphy and Jaimin Hunsu, does your history as an actor, does that really help you? Does it inform how you're working with them as a
I
director
hope
on
so.
set?
I mean, they're probably the best ones to talk to about it, but I hope so. I think that at the end of the day, I know the things that hinder me as an actor. I know the things that can make you feel like you don't have the space or the freedom or the respect to do what you want to do. And so that's what I do. I mean, first and foremost, what I try to do is make every scene feel more like a play. So I try to let them inhabit the space before I put cameras out. I try to let them get all their questions and concerns out on the script weeks in advance so that they can actually process it, so that we're not making changes right there in the moment. And but all that to say, then I got just sheer luck of getting actors like that. I mean, Jaimin is phenomenal, been a fan of his forever, and then Cillian Murphy, I think, is one of the most talented actors we have, period. Have always thought that, and I am so honored that I get to be the first person to put him in this type of role where he's holding an entire movie in that kind of way. Of course, he's done huge movies before, like 28 Days Later, and carried the whole thing literally himself. But this was a really cool place to put him.
Yeah, excellent. John, congratulations
Thank you very
on
much.
the movie. I'll
I
wait for
appreciate
you
it.
from over here.
Exactly.
Thanks again.